Hello, this is the video essay for ASU's FMS 598 Media Technology and Society for the Multi-Platform Digital Network Analysis Project at the end of the semester. My name is Jim Stockwell. Hello, and thank you for joining me today as I look at several different platforms in relation to the digital network analysis project at the end of our semester. I'm going to look at the three different networks, which are Tumblr, Twitter, and YouTube. And in order to kind of draw a parallel between all three, I'm going to look at the character of Batman, most specifically the analysis of that particular character. Now, the reason I chose the three platforms that I did is that I looked at three different ones that I had different levels of understanding about. And then why I chose the particular character that I did is because as I look at all of the different types of characters out there, is undoubtedly my favorite. But the other thing is he is multi-generational, which is also very important in our study of media that we've talked about all this semester. So let's begin. We'll start by talking about the one that I learned the most about because it was the one I had the least experience with, which was Tumblr. Now, Tumblr was launched in 2007. And since I did not really have very much experience with it, I actually went out and read an article that is, though it's not academic, I thought was very important for me so that I could understand it. Dan Price wrote one in 2019, and it was called How to Use Tumblr. Now, I know that sounds so elementary, but when you're an old dog like myself, you just don't know much about it. So that's why I did that. So I went through and I read a lot of the different things there. And what I found out about Tumblr was that it's what we call a microblogging site. And with a microblogging site, that means that people can create their own content and then they can share it with others. So its affordances are that you could put in various different pictures, you could put in a commentary, you could set up your screen in a particular way that would make it appealing to other individuals. Now, this was also kind of highlighted in Autu and Tyrannus. They did a study in 2018 that showed what the long form post, if you will. They also had the tracking tags that you could put in, and also the multi-modal nature of that particular program. So it was something very modern. It fits into the digital network aspects of it. And when we look at it, the great thing about it is the ability to share content with other people. Now, its limitations, of course, dealt with the fact that you had to have subscribers or people that followed your particular blog. And therefore, that meant that only the people that were following you could actually see what you were doing. And especially if you set it up that way, yeah, again, your affordances, you can make it private or you can make it public, but there was different elements to it that would limit that aspect, and therefore people wouldn't necessarily see it. One of the ideas with it, it was much more straightforward about the communities that it could deal with or the elements that it would spend its time with. You would work within people that had maybe same interests of you, and therefore people could connect with one another in that manner. Now, when we look at it from the element of Batman or the filter through Batman, what we were seeing with Batman is he is multi-generational, right? But with Tumblr, it's focal point is mostly the 18 to 49-year-olds. And so those are people that are used to the modern day films, not so much of the comic books or the graphic novels. So it's limited on who you were meeting. Now, if you did get into a community that followed the graphic novels or another modality, such as the television program or even the comic books from when it was first launched, you could get into discussions and share things that way. But again, you had to be in that community in order for that to connect. And that was one of its big limitations. So as I moved over to Twitter, which I did have a little bit more experience with, mainly because I had taken a class in technology. And so we had one of the assignments was we had to set up a Twitter account. So I did that. I set up a Twitter account. Now, unlike what Tumblr does, Twitter, when you set up things, you do have some affordances there. You can put a picture out there and you can also put a comment with it. And you could also put a little bit of a video blog, but it's very, very small. It's a very small snippet. You could put that out there. And the one thing that was really important was also the followers. You need to have followers in order for them to see what you're dealing with. Now, there is one thing about it, unlike with Tumblr, where you had to be part of a community. With Twitter, if you just wanted to put it in a broad area, you could do that. So if you were to just search for Batman, you would have a lot of individuals dealing with Batman, whereas in what we saw with Tumblr, you had to be in a specific community. And now, with the limitations of the affordances on Twitter, one of the big things that we ran into was that you had to have people kind of understand where your text was going, if you will, because what we see with this is that the usage of Twitter, and Ramaker made a 2018 study about this, is that it's a sharing and a retweeting a lot of times, but there's not a lot of interpersonal communication. You may just look at it like a picture or something like that and think, oh, that was cool, but there wasn't necessarily a lot of interpersonal communication going on. You could, of course, that was an affordance. You had a like button, or you could put a comment, especially if subscribed or followed that particular person. But again, it was more just a video sharing site, but it was also a limited video sharing type. You only could do a small snippet. And so therefore you may get something in the Batman. You could show a picture of a particular Batman, but as far as getting into a conversation or something like that, you would have to make a comment about that and then hope that the followers followed along with that same one. So there was some limitations on Twitter. And again, it had to be with the fact that people understood what you were saying when you say that. So the third and final platform that I analyzed was YouTube. Now, I have the most experience of the three of those. That's the one I had the most experience with, simply because YouTube is kind of universal. It's kind of built over time, right? And Saboyan brought up in their 2018 article, they talked about the content and really the creation. So you had the creation and the content that you could work through there. In Module 6, we studied a lot about the signs through conventions. We also understood the like button versus the comments and things of that. And there was also a multimodality that we understood there. The modes that we saw with Twitter and Tumblr were more focused in on maybe snippets real quick. Whereas what YouTube, the benefit to YouTube had was was designed behind as a video sharing site. In 2016, Holland had an excellent paper, and it talked about how YouTube looked at the demographic of 18 to 49-year-olds, and it had more followers than any cable network in 2018. So or users or anything like that, that's an amazing thing. Now, we understand there is an affordance with it. Everybody can have their own YouTube channel, so to speak. It's where you post your own videos and stuff like that. And also the search engine in a YouTube program platform is so much more varied, right? If you just type in Batman, you're going to get all kinds of things. You're going to get actual videos of Batman from the movies. You're going to get videos of Batman from the animated series. So there's two different modalities right there. You also have situations where people are making commentary about the movies. You also have the actors maybe talking about playing the role. You could do a lot more things, unlike what we saw with Tumblr and Twitter. Tumblr, of course, is microblogging, so it's very opinion driven, whereas what we saw with Twitter, it's more limited to just a piece, whereas YouTube could actually be a full video. And depending on where you were set up with this particular system, depending on how much video you could actually do. So the affordances did limit that, but other people had the opportunity to put on a full video or put on something like that. So it's a very big part of it. Now, there was something else that Holland brought up in her study, is that, and she brought up what Burgess and Green did in 2009, is that the idea behind YouTube was to limit the barriers that we ran into with video uploading. And I find that to be very, very applicable, because that's what I'm using to give you this video essay. I'm using YouTube, right? And so for somebody like me that does not have a lot of experience on it, I find that to be very, very helpful. Now, there is an issue that we run in. Burry brought it up in her 2016 article, and then also Jeremiah and Holmes in their 26 article, both brought up the same thing that happened with YouTube. YouTube is replacing the video television networks that we used to have. There's much more independent viewing, and we also noticed that it's not so much family viewing. We watch it on our phones, or we watch it on our laptop or a tablet. So we have really changed the entire breakdown of the way that we use YouTube. YouTube is a video sharing site, but it's also replacing television, and it's much more on demand. And it gives us a chance to have a lot more of a selection, and that you can do that. So as we look at the three different platforms, Tumblr, Twitter, and YouTube, each of those three can look at one subject, Batman, and we can see what their affordances allow, but we also can see their limitations. Tumblr is a microblogging site that allows us to look at something and share an opinion. Twitter can share an opinion, but also can give us a little snippet along the way to add in some sort of conversation. Whereas YouTube is a video sharing site, so there's not as many commentaries with it, but it does give a lot more people outlets to find out about these various different videos that are out there. So all in all, when we look at the way that digital media has evolved over the last, even last 15, 20 years, we notice that each one of these has an option that allows a particular community to follow. People that subscribe to Tumblr fit into a particular community. People that work in Twitter fit into a community, and people that are in YouTube fit into another community. So if you were going to promote your character or promote your product or get in touch with other people, you have to use the various different platforms in order to reach a different group of people, because each one has their own affordances, each one has their own limitations. Okay? So if you only use one to look at Batman, you're not going to get the whole story. If you use all three, you are going to get it. And that's what I have discovered through my analysis of the multi-platform digital networks that we have studied. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful day.